Welcome into the Saints Insider Podcast. Today is Wednesday, October the 22nd. Zach Ewing here with Jeff Duncan, Luke Johnson, and Matthew Paris. And on this podcast, there are no season-ending injuries yet.
My Achilles ticking time bomb over here.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm having the same
You're going to see
issue.
me in a boot at some point, I'm sure of it.
What'd you do?
I'm just getting old.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having like a strain in mine now. I'm afraid I'm going to
I've had
Yeah,
some,
we're going to have a
it's
double
like
Achilles
It's
over
like a
here.
trend, man. What about you, Matt?
I'm in the best shape of my life.
How's your Achilles? I'll tell you what, this podcast is going to go a number of different directions. We are going to talk season-ending injuries to Eric McCoy and Kendry Miller. We are going to talk about the, I guess, weekly at this point quarterback question of when the timing of when you turn to Tyler Shough. Not even a knock on Rattler, just when you turn to Tyler Shough will be for this Saints team, and then start to turn the page from the loss in Chicago to this week's home game in Tampa Bay. So the Saints Insider is sponsored by Bank Plus. From small business to big business, home loans to bank anywhere technology, Bank Plus is here for New Orleans. New deposit customers can reach out today to learn about incredible rate specials. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. And yeah, this feels like a low point, an inflection point. It's probably not as low as the Seattle loss, Luke, but I think reality has sunk in for even the most optimistic people around the Saints right now that this season is just going to be a lost one.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, the back half of the schedule is certainly much easier than the front half, right? Like, I think there's a decent possibility they end with a couple more wins in the back half, but like you're still looking at a team that is, I mean, it's just clearly it's out of it, right? You're 1-6, you have basically no shot to win the division, and like the NFC is just like loaded with a lot of teams who are like 500 or better right now. Basically, your chances of making a crazy push for a wild card run are exceedingly slim. So. And then you bring up the fact that they've lost two really important offensive players, and an offense that's already struggling for the season. It's just hard to see a path where they could be like truly relevant. But I think that's kind of what we all anticipated we'd see this season. And really, to me, this back half of the season is just about finding out what you have in the future. It's about feeling comfortable with the process that Kellen Moore has in place. Like I feel like that was always the goal. It's just like now it's just kind of been hammered home with the way these first 7 weeks have gone.
Jeff, I think you tweeted out this morning that The Athletic or New York Times, whatever it is, their model that has playoff chances already has the Saints at less than 0.1%, which is like,
Well, yeah, and I
for
think
week 8 is crazy.
That's to Luke's point. I mean, I think the strength of the league right now is the NFC. You know, I think it's a little more powerful than we all thought. There's a lot of good teams in the NFC, so I think that contributes to it. Like there's a real disparity between the top and the bottom. The Saints are the only team in the NFC with one win, so it's kind of a little bit of statistical, probability factoring in there. But I also think, I was thinking about this weekend. I don't know how you all feel about it, but trying to gauge the fan base can always be a little bit of a dicey exercise. But, a year ago, we all heard, what did we hear? Injuries were the cause of the problem. A lot of a segment of the fan base, Derek Carr's the problem, or DA's the problem. So it seems like all those things have been rectified, and they're actually worse this year, right? I mean, they're healthier, they have a new head coach and a new quarterback. So was that all misguided, just out of anger or frustration, or was this team on this trajectory no matter what? That kind of is the question I want to ask, because I don't really know my answer on that.
I think we said it back, after last season ended, where, for all of Derek Carr's faults, like he was a good, solid NFL quarterback. Like he didn't do a lot of stuff that you wanted to see out of him, but like he still elevated that team. And as surprising as Rattler has been, he's definitely exceeded expectations, right? Like I still don't think he's at that level at this stage of his career. Like he's definitely got some room to grow, and I think you could see him getting to that level. But like, they can't like lean on him in the way that you could for like a 10-year veteran to get stuff done. Like there's there's just like a lot of stuff that he is not capable of doing yet. So I think the young quarterback thing has been a big part of this, even if he's played better than a lot of people thought.
Yeah.
And that's like when you take an experienced quarterback out of the equation, and you go to the young guy. Like I think it sets up a season like we're seeing, even if he's playing okay.
I don't even think it's just necessarily having a young quarterback. I just think this roster is not where it needs to be, and I think that's kind of what this season has showed. Because
and that's getting the dunks.
Yes, you can blame the injuries, you can blame the coaching staff. The other thing the fans wanted last season that they didn't get was firing Mickey Loomis, and he's the one who picks the players or oversees the roster, and those conversations have not quieted, at least on Twitter, from the fan base who are still out for blood with that. And they just haven't done a good enough job of building their roster. I mean, they're playing Tampa Bay this week. Tampa Bay is a team that's drafted very well, that's been able to sustain some of this turnover that they've had from Tom Brady retiring. For instance, they hit on the quarterback. They're pivotal steps you have to have for a franchise, and the Saints have just missed on some of the marks, even if this coaching staff looks promising and, they found some things on the margins. It's just the overall health of the roster is not nearly as strong as what it was in the Breeze era.
It's interesting you say all that, too, because the common denominator, Jeff, to your point, okay, the injuries are better this year, although maybe not for long. The quarterback is different. The coaching staff is different. The common denominator is Mickey Loomis and the front office. And I know fans are starting to turn to that as their scapegoat. Mickey Loomis went on WWL last night, his weekly radio appearance, and basically said the opposite of what he did last year, where last year he's going, okay, you have to look beyond the record. That was the famous comment that kind of ticked everybody off and said, well, you are what your record says you are. This year he kind of said that, and he said, well, look, 1-6 is not good enough. It's not going to get it done. Is that a sign Mickey feels pressure? Is that a sign where he just trying to get people off his back? I mean, what do you guys think of that?
Yeah, he's pandering to the temperature of the fan base. And he knows. I mean, he got PR people out there and people advising him about what tenor and what note to strike, and I think he's just doing that.
Well, it's also different because you can acknowledge the realities in the first year of a head coach that you hired. You don't feel any pressure. Like, he wanted to keep Dennis Allen. He was trying to alleviate the pressure of Dennis Allen by pointing to all the injuries. Like, I think last season he was trying to do his coach a solid, and it didn't ultimately work. But I think that was kind of the rationale behind that.
Yeah, and I think, I guess what I was getting at earlier was, I'm not sure that we'd still be sitting here right now even with Derek Carr. Like, I feel like maybe he might have made a difference in one more win or something. I just feel like this was where they were going to end up, regardless if Carr retired or not. I feel like there's a bigger thing going on here than just one of those aspects. It's kind of all of them. And, whether even DA, DA obviously had some issues as a head coach, but there's just a lot of things going wrong. And it's not as simple, the reductive reasoning of let's hang this guy, let's hang Derek Carr, let's hang DA. You're going to go through the whole organization eventually. You know what I'm saying? That's where they're at.
I guess what I was trying to say is I don't think they'd be 1-6.
Yeah, maybe
I think they'd be like a mediocre football team, which is like it is better, I think, to be 1-6 and have the opportunity to just like really do a functional reset on your team than to be hanging on like they were with Derek Carr, where when he was on the field, they were a 500 football team. I feel like that's probably where they'd be right now.
Yeah, and to Loomis's credit, like, he has set up this roster in more recent months to try and pivot toward the young players or give, this coaching staff. We've seen Quincy Riley in the lineup, Jonas Sanker because of injuries, but I think they were acknowledging that this was a period of transition. We want to see more of these young guys. Let's try and not bring in a lot of veterans in free agency. Like, they clearly recognize that without Carr, there's going to have to be a little bit of a shift, and I think they've done some of that.
Well, I agree 100%. Then that gets back to the column I wrote a week ago. Why wouldn't you look to trade any asset you have. It's not going to be a part of your long-term future. If you're looking down the road, which I think they are clearly by their actions, then if people are calling, as all these reports, and I don't think all these reports are wrong,
Right.
good people are reporting it, why would you not look to move regardless of if the player wants to stay? I mean, I know you want to be loyal. I get it. There's something to be said for that. Trading somebody is difficult. There's families involved. There's, lifestyle. I get all of it. It's a business. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. If they're going to sit there and, you have a chance to get some assets. You're 1-6. They're not going to make the playoffs. We know that. That's what they should be doing, in my opinion, looking to the future. If you're really in, I get it. Pulling that Band-Aid off. There's going to be a segment of the fan base that loves player A, player B. It happens, but people get over it too. They did with Jimmy Graham, they did with Reggie Bush. Move on.
Matt, to that point, you compiled a list of guys you had seen mentioned as trade targets or at least possibilities in the national media. And you came up with 11 names that you saw.
Yeah,
is that right? Yeah.
10, I believe.
10. Okay, 10.
But yeah, just based on NFL Network, ESPN, and CBS Sports, Cam Jordan, Dylan Radins, Brandon Cooks, Alvin Kamara, Pete Werner, Carl Granderson, Demario Davis,
Chris Olave,
Rashid Shaheed. What was I at 9? I'm missing one.
Pete Werner?
Pete Werner, yes. And so that's some of those are fan sentimental favorites. I don't think there's any use in trading Cam Jordan. What does that give you? You're doing it for a 7th and a 6th swap.
Right.
He's one of your most iconic players. It's not worth it to trade someone like that because what you're getting back won't. No one's realistically going to give up good assets for a 35-year-old pass rusher. But Chris Olave, if teams are willing to pay what the Saints got for Marshawn Lattimore, Saints, I think, would have to do it. That was a really good return. You can see where the Saints benefited from that. They got Jonas Sanker out of the deal with the draft pick that they received from the Commanders. I believe Quincy Riley as part of that. Players who can help you pivot to that next era. And so Olave had a real bounce-back game last week. I think I said on the show last week the reason to keep Olave is because I think he can still restore his value to a better point and then maybe trade him next year when he's in his 5th-year option if you can't reach an agreement. There's value of keeping him around for Spencer Rattler's development or the quarterback. But, hey, if you have a team willing to give up, premium assets, then, to your point, Jeff, that the Saints are in a position where they probably need to do that.
Okay, one thing that also has shifted this conversation that we need to hit on is the 2 season-ending injuries that were suffered in Sunday's game in Chicago. Eric McCoy, torn biceps. Kendry Miller, torn ACL. Both need surgery. Both will be out for the season. That's 4 now. Julian Blackmon and Vernon Broughton also out for the season. So the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit. I don't know. Last year was the outlier, Luke, where you're just no team should go through that. Just statistically, it shouldn't happen that way. This is a little bit more normal, but especially with a guy like McCoy we saw last year, this stuff takes its toll too.
McCoy is one of the few guys who, if they're gonna be the best version of themselves, they can't afford to miss. You could lose a lot of guys and probably still patch something together. I don't see how you can do it without Eric McCoy. He's so important to what they do, especially with young quarterbacks in there. He is the glue that keeps that offensive line together. He's the one calling out the protections, identifying blitzes. And beyond that, he's just a really good player. Really good. PFF is what it is. It's not the end-all, be-all, but they have him as the highest-graded pass-blocking center in football this year. He was the highest-graded center on the service in all of last year in the games that he played.
He's the Saints' best player.
He's so good. And without him in the lineup, it's going to affect the entire offensive line. Yeah. And it's going to affect the quarterbacks. It's going to affect the ground game. It's going to affect protection. It's he has such a huge role on this team, such a huge impact that I don't think a lot of teams' centers do. And even if you really like what you've seen out of players like Torricelli Simpkins or whatever, I think there's just such a giant drop off there that, like, the Kendre Miller thing, it sucks. It really sucks for Kendre Miller. It's yet another season where he plays like half or less of the games. But, like, when you're looking at the outlook and impact on this year's team, Eric McCoy is the biggest one.
Well, why I feel bad for Eric McCoy, too, is now this is back-to-back seasons of this, and then you're getting into uncomfortable conversations of how much can the Saints rely on Eric McCoy going forward, because he set a new career low in games played last year with 7, 6 this year.
Not 7.
Yeah.
It would be 7 this year, yeah.
Same, but not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, not enough. And so it would be – it's just tough. You know, it kind of reminds me of what happened with Ryan Ramczyk. The injuries are a lot different, but this was a guy who was a pillar on your offensive line, an anchor, and then they eventually just couldn't count on him.
I feel bad for Jeff Duncan because he's not going to lead the team in rushing this year. So
I forgot about that. I actually didn't think about that.
I'm shocked you didn't. That wasn't.
No, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I guess that is a little bit of a bad situation. No, look, I think Luke's right 100%. Like, they can absorb Blackman and any of these other ones. This is a tough blow. I would say he's probably one of the 3 most indispensable guys on the roster. I mean, he's just he affects so many different parts of the game, and I think the morale, you know, it's demoralizing to lose him. He's a leader, you know. He brings competence to that line, and there's a lot that goes into losing him beyond the physical ability, and he's one of the few guys. You know, I was talking about this yesterday. The Saints the roster is kind of like this. There's no middle class. You know what I mean? Like it's DeMarios and Cams and Taysums and Alvins, the upper, you know, the older guys, and then there's all these young guys that are talented, Kelvin Banks and Fuaga, you know, Riley, if you want to throw these younger guys in there, but they're missing that mid-20s to late 20s prime player, and he's kind of one of them that they have. Olave's another one. Granderson. I mean, they don't have very many of them. That's why they're probably where they're at right now, is they don't have those guys in their prime. Drew Brees used to always say, you know, do we hit me on Brees? Does that count?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Parcells is more of the...
Yeah, well, he used to always say, and I agree with him, he'd say, when you're in your mid to late 20s, you've been in the league long enough to know what to do, and you're still physically capable of doing it. You know, and I think that's the perfect way of looking at it. Like, you know, you can still dominate. You know, Cam Jordan knows what to do, but he no longer has the physical ability to do it. So that's the prime sweet spot for the NFL, and the Saints don't have enough of those elite players in that age group.
Yeah, I mean, but it goes back to my earlier thing of, like, they've intentionally set the roster this way. They haven't tried to find many of those bridge guys or sign guys on their second contract in free agency. One, because, like, they're trying to get their salary cap to a healthier place, but it's more beneficial for them to let these guys grow and, you know, go into a season where Alontae Taylor in your 4th year and Khalid McKinstry in his second, like, all your starting corners. It's that you got to let these guys get snaps for there's development.
All right. Well, we will continue this discussion after we take a break here on the Saints Insider. But by the way, thinking about those bold predictions, for those who missed it, in August we made bold predictions. But you were Julian Blackman Pro Bowl. So that one kaput.
Yeah, he played one game
right away.
This side of the pod is not doing well.
Yours was Shough gets in by week 3, so that's gone.
Technically, he played.
So
that's not happening.
That's not what
Rod's was that Devon Vele would lead the team in completions. How's that going? Was he got 2?
Well, they were bold predictions, right?
They were bold.
Maybe a little too bold.
I got Tyler Shough getting Offensive Rookie of the Year votes.
Okay.
So
yeah.
When I'm the clubhouse leader, we're in trouble here because I don't think that's happening.
4-5.
Yeah. I had Justin Reed Pro Bowl in there somewhere. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been a dreary year for us too, I guess. But we will continue the discussion with a little bit on the quarterback situation and when the Saints may make that switch right after this on the Saints Insider.
Banking has come to a crossroads. Do you want to bank with an actual bank, with actual people? You know, one that you can walk into or drive through, get real help from a real person. Or do you want a bank that lives inside your phone? A digital bank that gives you control of your money anywhere, anytime. Well, why not both? Bank Plus, a partner in your corner, wherever that may be.
Did they ask you to do the commercial too?
Yeah, but they just gave me one line.
Bet like a Caesar. Like, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna tell them how Caesar's Sportsbook is just so easy to use that you can watch and bet thousands of sports events, even some NFL games.
They'll probably show us betting on our favourite players and teams at all the Vegas hotspots too.
Like, we have time for that montage.
I told him I couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford me.
Welcome back to the Saints Insider. We're looking up Offensive Rookie of the Year odds because Tyler Shough clearly is going to get himself into that conversation. No, I don't think so. But I do think, Matt, we're at the point now, and a 4-turnover game certainly advances this conversation. But I think it's combined with the fact that, like Jeff noted, the Saints' playoff chances are under 1% already. There's no realistic path forward. It's going to be a weekly conversation now, and we've already had it with Kellen Moore this week, and he said not this week. When do the Saints take their glance at what Tyler Shough is in a live NFL regular season game?
Yeah, I think like another way to phrase it would be how long do the Saints want, like how big of a sample size do the Saints want to evaluate Tyler Shough to feel comfortable about his future? You know, the argument to be made is like, it should probably be around now, so you have half a season of Rattler, half a season of Shough. I don't think on the merit, you know, Jeff, you wrote about this, but one bad game, like, you should not be pulling Spencer Rattler just because he had a lot of turnovers. It's more of a picture of where the Saints are at. How beneficial is this for them to keep doing the same thing over and over and not getting those results? It is encouraging that Rattler has shown, like, I think, meaningful improvement. Last week was tough for him, but the Patriots game, I thought, was his best game as a pro. So, you know, you could see some of that stuff in there, but I don't know. The schedule is getting easier. You drafted Tyler Shough 40th overall. Shough, even though he didn't win the starting job, he still has some really interesting traits that I would like to see at some point. I think if they lose this week, and it's more of the same from Spencer Rattler, or he's like an abject disaster, then you go to Shough against
Rams?
the Rams. Yeah.
Which is
Well,
a
the
tough
Rams
landing
or
spot.
Carolina,
Yeah.
like one of those two. Like, I mean, you could wait until the bye, but then I don't know.
Then you're only getting 7 games.
Yeah.
Luke, how much time's on your Rattler watch?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, to me, it'd be probably after the Rams game. Like, I think that's, even though we've seen, like, we saw the Giants put
Right.
Jackson Dart in, I think, on the road against the Chargers in what was a tough environment, and he ended up winning that game.
The home game, I think.
You're right. It was a home game. I just think, look, this has kind of been my stance from the beginning. Like I think we've seen a lot of really good, encouraging stuff about Rattler. Like, he might end up being, like, the guy for this team next year. Like, he might. We just don't know. But, like,
I know.
well, you know, like,
No,
I think it's been good enough to be just intrigued by it, right? And
Yeah,
say,
he is
like you could see a path for him to be like a top, I don't know, 15 quarterback if he keeps improving, right? You can see that path. Like, I think he's.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's top.
it's-
I think he's probably top 25 right now. You know,
Yeah.
like a lot of the numbers that you see, you're like, okay, like, he's better than player X, Y, and Z in these numbers. He's got a better passer rating right now than Bo Nix and Michael Penix, 2 first-round picks from last year. Okay, but if you are not convinced he's going to be the guy, you're 1-6. You're probably going to have a top 5 pick next year. You're going to be in position to draft a franchise quarterback for the first time in forever if you want to do that. Like, you need to see what Tyler Shough can do if that's going to be a possibility for you next year. Because like, at this point, you're going to know a little bit of what you have in Spencer Rattler, and Shough is a completely unknown variable. He could go in there and completely bomb, and you could be like, okay,
Now we know.
Now we know. We're either going to roll with Rattler or we're going to draft a quarterback next year. You know, if that's what happens, but you've got to know, because like if you are not completely certain right now that Rattler is going to be your guy, like you have to give yourself as much of an opportunity to see what you got in the other guy, the guy that you took 40th overall this year's draft. And I think it's not like a complete. It's not like set in stone that like you're going to put Shough in there and he's going to be terrible. Like I think we saw him gradually improve over the over the preseason. I think that they made the right call in starting Spencer Rattler. We've seen why he got the starting nod, but like what we haven't seen is what Tyler Shough looks like now. You know, after he's had 2 months to run the scout team offense. Like they say they have seen good things from him. We haven't seen that because we don't get to watch that in practice. So like, to me, it would make the most sense if you get Rattler gets 9 games, Shough gets 8 games. You make the switch after the Rams game.
I want to dig into how Shough has looked and how what we've heard in a minute. But one more thing on Rattler, Jeff. He has played better, but there's still this. He's 1-12 as a starting quarterback now. Okay, this is now going back almost a full season. Does it change your opinion on this at all? If they should pull an upset in the next 2 weeks, if they were to beat Tampa Bay on Sunday or go win in L.A., big upsets, play Super Bowl contending teams. If he beats one of them, does that give you pause, or do you still need to say, hey, we need half a season of Tyler Shough as well?
Yeah, see, that's a good point because I think, it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison to the Giants because you had a veteran like Russell Wilson who you kind of know what he is. The Saints' evaluation is complicated because you have 2 young developmental quarterbacks. So you really have to – what I think this comes down to is how long do you need to see Spencer Rattler, in my opinion. You have – what's the body of work you need to evaluate him if he is, quote, unquote, the guy? And then once you know what you have in him, then I think you move to Shough no matter what and find out what you have in him. Because I think the whole season now that they're out of it comes down to – this next draft coming up, like Luke said, where you have a real opportunity to draft somebody you think may be your franchise quarterback of the future, and that's got to be the number one decision that's at least settled to some degree at the quarterback position this year. So I think it comes down to less about Shough than it is about Rattler. Do they feel like right now they know what Spencer Rattler is? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they do that. So I don't know if the wins and losses matter so much, although I do think that's the one clear thing that he's lacked in all this body of work is he hasn't had a real signature moment, I guess you could say, the Commanders game a year ago where he drove them down, right? That's like the one thing he's done, but otherwise he hasn't been able to get them over the hump. And all of his backers and the agenda, hashtag agenda, all we heard a year ago was all the injuries, he doesn't have a fair hand. He's had almost the entire starting offense all year. The entire starting offense has been healthy until this past week, basically, except Taysom Hill, I guess you'd say. And they're still lacking. And I know his numbers look good, but he kind of reminds me like of a younger version of Derek Carr in that it still's not adding up to the victories. Like when he gets down to the red zone, when his third down, the key situations, his numbers are way down near the bottom of the league, and that's the most important areas. So you have to make that decision as coaches is he going to figure that out, or is that a fatal flaw that he's not going to ever figure out, or it's not good enough? I think that's probably what's going on the Airline Drive behind closed doors is figuring those analytics out.
If he did get one of those wins, he would buy himself more time. Like, I just think the way Kellen Moore operates, I don't think they're going to make a change like that just because, like, that would be the prudent move to do. Like, we've seen, for instance, what they're doing with Danny Stutzman of, like, a rotation. All right, you take a series now over Pete Werner. They're not going to do that at quarterback.
No,
like they're totally not going to be like, oh, all right, Tyler Shough, you go in for this drive, and Spencer, then you go back out there. Like it'd be fun if they did it, but
it depends.
It wouldn't make a lot of sense.
I don't think it's like it wouldn't be fair, right? If they lose to the Bucs and then they beat the Rams and then they bench Spencer Rattler after the Rams, it would not be fair. But like I think it's still the right move. Like, you still got to get the time to see what you got, unless they're like, Spencer's our guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way they can continue to have him in the lineup because they're gonna be faced with the decision to draft a quarterback early in the draft next year. Like, they got to see what they have in Tyler Shough.
I mean, though, if you're talking about Spencer Rattler's development and he does score one of these big wins, like, I think you owe it to him to see how he can build on it. Like, does beating like a team like the Rams like unlock a level of even? He's already very confident, but like, does he keep playing with that confidence to where now you can start to get a little bit on a roll, and does that unlock a new level of his game? Like, I think you kind of owe it to him to see that if he pulls off such like a big win like that, but. That's the thing with Rattler is he hasn't had those big wins.
It also depends on how those wins come. Is he throwing 3 touchdown passes and leading the team, or is it another 5 turnover game from the defense? And he's fine, but not the reason they
Sure.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that could happen for them is to go into this offseason without knowing the answers on both those guys. Because let's face it, if they go into the draft next year and do use a top 5 pick on a quarterback, they're not going to keep Rattler and Shough. I mean, they're going to move on from one, maybe both. Who knows? I mean, they're going to trade that because that could be an asset to somebody else. They're not going to have those 3 guys on the roster. They'll have some veteran in here, and it'll be more like a Giants. So they've got to figure all that out. They've got to. I mean, this is all about asset and roster management for the future, and so I think it has less to do with whether he wins. But I think you're right. The way this organization operates, it feels like a lot of times they are very sensitive to optics, and the optics would be bad on that. You beat the Rams, and all of a sudden,
no, it would be terrible.
Right,
it would be terrible. But I'd still think like
I think it's your right move too. I agree.
It's the right move. Like unless it's, unless they are like we really think that we have something in him, and he might be our guy for the future. That's like the only way that you could talk me out of that.
You got to stop worrying about optics at some point and start winning. That's more important. The variable that we don't really have access to here, that you mentioned, Luke, is how Tyler Shough has looked behind closed doors. Because for those who don't know, reporters can go out to practice. Y'all see basically the entire practice in training camp in the preseason. Once the regular season starts, is it 15 minutes?
It's about 20. Yeah, it's like we get to see them go through their stretching routine, and then they do some individual work, and then they boot us out. So we never see any like actual like plays.
Competitive. You get to verify that they're there and they're moving around okay. But as far as a competitive sequence or a competitive session, the last time we saw Tyler Shough was the Broncos preseason game. So we don't know how he looks. Now, Luke, you mentioned that the reports have been positive, but would they say if he wasn't looking good? I don't know.
No, of course not. Like especially not this staff. I mean, like, you ask Kellen Moore about
he's looked phenomenal.
Literally anybody. It's like he looks awesome. He's done awesome. So, we have no idea where he's at in this stage of his development, which is like they are obviously armed with more information than we are. But I think you still need to see, even if like he's looking great in these scout team practices.
I think especially if he's looking great.
But even if he is, right, and they're feeling very good about it, like you still need to see it in a game. Like,
yeah, there's a big difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like I can remember a few years back when Alex Smith was the starter. That was the big legend, right? Was that Mahomes was just lighting it up as a scout team in practice and gave them enough confidence to move on from Alex Smith and go all in on Mahomes. I don't know if we're going to see. I mean, that's such a rare, and he's also one of the great players we've seen in the last generation. So I don't know if it's fair to say like we're even going to know. I think it's very possible the staff won't know anymore either. Like they got to get him out there. Like Luke said, you got to get him in a game. You have to see when the pressure's on, the live bullets are flying. Like how does he react and how does he come back from a turnover and things like that? Right. I mean, that's the litmus test, and I think we only find that out in the game.
Right, and Mahomes is also like a top 10 pick. It's different scenario with him.
Yeah. Matt, you have any take on this? I mean, if he looks bad in practice, I still almost say you got to get him out there. Some guys just play better when they get under the lights.
Yeah, no, that's true, but I just don't think we know enough. I mean, we saw him for 3 snaps in Seattle, just like a 3 and out, and that's not enough to judge how he's been.
30-point game, yeah.
Right.
I will say this as a Louisville guy. I'll say this. I am starting to wonder, like in the back of my mind, is Jeff Brahms so good that maybe he elevated Shough? I mean, that's just something I've thought about recently because, I mean, he is a very good offensive coach and they have a very good system. And sometimes you can, Shough definitely had the best year of his career there. Miller Moss is playing pretty darn well. Like, could that be something to think about. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, it could definitely be part of it. I mean, like you see some of the traits that are exciting. You know, he's big, he can move well. Like I think he's actually a better runner than Spencer Rattler is. He's got a big arm, but like, you know, you got to like the actual like quarterback play might be system specific.
Right.
And I think we also like I think we have a pretty good gauge of Kellen Moore's system at this point. I mean, he's gotten pretty good play out of Spencer Rattler. So like maybe they could get something similar out of Shough. We just don't know until we see it.
The big question for me, when Tyler Shough plays, is how does he handle pressure? Because that was the clear improvement in Spencer Rattler's game.
Yep.
That's why he won the job, as he did that, avoided negative plays. And if that's too overwhelming for him, and now especially without Eric McCoy, like that makes it harder to judge Tyler Shough. But once he's in there, he's going to have to show he can handle a live NFL pass rush.
And I'll say this. I mean, that's the one aspect of the game that has really surprised me is how much better Rattler is. Now, the sacks are starting to add up a little bit. He's starting to kind of get back to where, you know, he was a year ago. But I think looking at PFF yesterday, he's number 2 or number 3 in the whole league among quarterbacks in running, scrambling behind Baker Mayfield, who's legendary, right? So, I mean, that's an aspect. But also some of that could be fool's gold, you know, like is that going to keep up just the law of probability? Is he going to keep escaping these miraculous Houdini-like escapes, or are these sacks going to start adding up? That's something the staff has to determine too.
Yeah. Kellen Moore did sort of leave the door open for a switch at some point when he talked Monday, although it doesn't sound like it's going to be this week. Haven't talked to him yet today.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
he said this week it's Rattler.
This week
He
is
said
Rattler,
this week
yeah.
it's Rattler, and then when he was asked kind of bluntly at what point do you need to see Shough, he just said it's week to week.
So
Yeah, so it's like it's just
it'll happen.
He's not getting pinned down.
Yeah.
it will probably happen. Like unless everything just clicks into place for Rattler and he proves he's the guy.
Yeah.
Rattler took 22 sacks last year in 7 games, 6 starts, so like 6.5 games basically. And 7 starts this year, he's taken 15.
So
His sack percentage is down about 2%.
that's
And that's
significant.
notable. Yeah, it's
Before we go, one other thing we wanted to touch on, kind of a takeaway from the Bears game, and that's on the other side of the ball. Matt, you wrote, you can find this on NOLA.com/Saints, about the Saints' kind of schizophrenic run defense. Like, they seem good some weeks, and you go, wow, there's a lot of improvement, and this is one of their goals going into the year, and they've gotten a lot better. And then they have a game like Sunday where the Bears run for 222 yards on them. Some of that was when they were putting the game away, but, I mean, I would almost argue at that point you know they're running. So what is the deal, man? Like, you looked at this, it doesn't seem to matter the scheme. It doesn't seem to matter the opponent. Like,
no, I mean, like the only thing I kind of pinpointed, and I don't even know, like, I don't think it's like that, like, defining, is that like teams are taking advantage of when the Saints are in like these light boxes where they're not crowding the line of scrimmage. Against Chicago, they had Justin Reed and Jonas Sanker like kind of deep on the back end, and I think the Bears took advantage of that. But you can run outside, you can run inside. Like, teams are doing a bit of both, and it really does seem to vary week by week of are they good or not. And I think that kind of comes down to the line itself of are they generating enough of a push? Are they being physical? Because that was something you really saw last season, is teams were just dominating the line of scrimmage, and this year it's been a bit more inconsistent.
I think one of the specific areas when they have struggled, it's against runners who are like pretty good cutback runners.
Right.
A number of DeAndre Swift's big runs last week were where he's finding the cutback lane and kind of exploiting maybe a little bit of over pursuit from the Saints. James Cook was the same way. The Buffalo game, obviously, he's like one of the best running backs in the NFL. I think that's just something you're just like, well, we got beat by that guy. DeAndre Swift, I mean, before last week, the only 100-yard game he had was the week before. Like, he hadn't been like putting up huge rushing numbers, but like even Manungai, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, that's right.
He doubled his career rushing total. I mean, he's a rookie, but
shades of Sean Tucker.
Yeah, they just I think they found a weakness to exploit in the Saints' running defense. But yeah, I'm with you, Matt. Like, it's really weird. It is week to week. I remember looking up the game by game, and it's just like,
Yeah, it's just Like, it's not like every other week because, like, the 49ers and the Seahawks, like, they shut down those run games, but then, like, struggled against the Bills. The Giants game is a really weird one because it's like, they kept their running backs in check, but they still had 146 yards because Jackson Dart had a really nice day. Mm-hmm. The Patriots got nothing, and the Bears, got everything.
I feel like
I wrote that.
Well, I feel like they've actually been pretty good against the run going into this game where I felt like that was. But this is the first game I've seen them where they kind of got blown off the ball up front, and it started early. I mean, like first play of the game, I think they were getting blown off. Like Brzee actually played a lot better this year against the run, but he was definitely getting blown off the ball. But the Bears, I think, invested a lot in the offseason to improve their offensive line. Tooney, Dahlman. I mean, that paid off, I think, in this game.
Darnell Wright's a really nice player for them.
Yeah, I think that team is on the come a little bit, and I also feel like Ben Johnson realized early in that game, like the passing game was really sporadic. I think the Saints were playing pretty well on the back end, so they just leaned into it. It's good coaching there. So I'm not ready to give up on them, but they have to tackle a little bit better. And I think Luke's point is really good about even Kellen said something the other day. He never really gives you much insight, but he even said something like our backside pursuit. And some of that comes down to just effort, and being at home and being in the right spot. But that was wide open. There should be somebody filling behind there. We weren't seeing much of that.
All right, that's going to do it for us today on the Saints Insider Podcast. We will be back with another episode Friday, previewing Saints in their first NFC South Division game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we'll see what happens in that one. But until then, our producer was Norman Bell. For Matthew Paris, Luke Johnson, and Jeff Duncan, I'm Zach Ewing. Thank you for watching.